Hello, everybody. It is great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, president, and founder of GSD Get You Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. Love artificial intelligence and quantum computing because I believe that the intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world. But we have infobesity, and AI is going to help us solve a lot of those challenges. With that, I've got an incredible guest today. Mark Tullis is a serial entrepreneur. He's a TechBuzz co-founder, so has worked a lot with coding schools, with techno kids, with labs like Acalix in Utah. I met him recently at an incredible event in Utah. Didn't know how many wonderful people and how many wonderful opportunities are out there. He's also has been an executive in residence in Alta Ventures. So with that, I'd like to bring Mark on. Hi, Mark. How are you today?
Hi, doing great. How are you doing, Gary?
Good. So you were telling me a wonderful story. I got to share it with the audience, if you don't mind, about getting your Christmas tree. I love that story. So going up, so you were telling me you went up the mountain in Idaho and you found the perfect tree that it was. You wanted one that was 8 foot, and you got a 14-foot tree. Now, how did that happen?
Well, there's an optical illusion when you're out in the forest. You know, when you're looking at a Christmas tree, it ends up just being a lot bigger when you get it home. And it's crazy. But we just decided on Black Friday to take the kids. It was a very spontaneous decision. In fact, we weren't really prepared for it. We didn't have the right clothing or footwear. And so we just decided to go on a long drive to the Caribou Targhee Forest in Idaho. And we just went right up the side of a mountain, and it was covered with snow, and we were wearing, ridiculous shoes. And we just kept hiking because we couldn't find the right tree. Because in the wild, trees are misshapen. They've had a hard life. So
Yes.
they've been pressed by lots of snow. But my daughter, she's 14. She just spotted this little tree that looked little, and it was easy to cut. We had a very dull saw, but we ended up. It was a very small base. It turned out to be a 14-foot tree, and luckily you can just keep cutting the base down to make it fit. So
See.
It looks great in our living room.
Now, did you cut the base down while you were up in the mountain, or did you bring it home and cut it down?
No, we brought it home. We had to. I guess I didn't trust my memory of how high our ceilings are, and so no, we had to measure when we got home, and then we ended up cutting some of the base down.
No, that's a wonderful story. I love that. So, you went to Brigham Young University, then you went to Tufts. What made you decide to go to Tufts from Brigham Young?
Oh, well, I had this mentor at Brigham Young University, a professor who went to the Fletcher School at Tufts, and he was always telling stories about it. And I had done some international travel and lived abroad, lived in Germany, and I had this idea it would be an interesting career to get into the Foreign Service and do, work as a Foreign Service officer. And Tufts Fletcher School is a good education for that kind of thing. It also had cross registration opportunities at the Harvard Business School, Harvard Law, MIT. So I ended up taking courses from all over in all over Cambridge and Boston. So it's a good experience. I met a lot of great people, had a great experience, and it was just mainly because I had an excellent mentor, Stan Taylor, who was a Fletcher alum.
And so when you went to Brigham Young, did you study German? Did you do a mission in Germany, or what did you do? So you seem like I was looking through it. You had a lot of German.
Yeah, I did. I traveled to Germany when I was 18, and then I was called on an LDS mission to Germany, the central part of Germany around Frankfurt. And
How was that, Mark? How was it doing that mission out there? So there you're an 18-year-old kid. You got 2 years mission. How was it? Like you're plopped down. I'm sure they gave you language training before you came down, but how did it feel?
well, I would. It is an intensive language training experience. 2 months before I would go to Germany. But once I got there, I realized how insufficient it was because their Germans speak so quickly and they have their own accents and dialects, and so it was. I mean, I had a fantastic experience. It was very difficult. We had austere apartments without heating.
Without heating in
Yeah, my
Germany?
first apartment didn't have a heater. You could see your breath in the morning in the wintertime. I was there during the winter. And that part of it, there's this combination of austerity and a lot of hard experiences being out on the streets, all day long, combined with fantastic relationships with people that we would meet, people that were in the same congregation in Germany, and then other missionaries group. We became very close. So it's just kind of a roller coaster. There's euphoric experiences and very sort of soul crushing hard experiences that you just at the end of the day you remember both, but you look fondly on the whole experience because it's so improbable for an 18 or 19-year-old person to go out and do that kind of thing, because it takes enormous effort to be put in that kind of a situation where you're out there meeting people, speaking a language that you're not quite comfortable with, and just having all sorts of adventures and mishaps and misadventures. But it was a fantastic experience, and I've gone back several times. I lived in Berlin about 2 years later, and in fact, I just took my daughter to Berlin on sort of a mini curated study abroad. And so, I'm very fond of Germany. I love going back, and it's changed a lot though since I was there in the 80s.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And so you went to what made you decide? So you went to Weber State University and you studied jazz and German.
Yeah, well, and it's pronounced Weber. It's not
Weber.
like the grill. It is Weber
Mhm.
State. Well, it was a local university. I had a scholarship. Had 2 scholarships actually. So it was an extremely inexpensive way to go to college. I learned how to play saxophone since I was quite young, and it offered a music scholarship and a leadership scholarship, I believe. So it covered all my expenses. But actually, Brigham Young has a much better jazz program. It's a really highly, decorated program. A lot of people know about it. In fact, we would perform at the Berkeley Jazz Festival in the Berkeley area, and we won something like 5 out of 8 awards at that festival. So BYU was the attraction because of its jazz program.
Wow.
And that's essentially why I went. I didn't really see myself being a professional jazz musician, but I really wanted to have the experience of playing in a near professional jazz band. We ended up touring Europe and played Disney World and we were the warm-up band to Wynton Marsalis at Disney World. And so,
That must have been interesting. I met him in Pennsylvania one time. I actually went out to dinner with him.
Oh, really? He's
Yeah,
a really fine gentleman. I've gotten to know him too. Yeah, in fact, he asked me to help find some real estate in Utah back in the day when Utah was this enormous bargain, Park City.
Yeah, not anymore. Those things, days have changed.
Yeah.
Days have changed. No, it's a wonderful place. I got to tell you, coming out there and spending time, just people are so nice and such a vibrant, incredible community, a lot going on, and
Yeah.
just a real good feeling out there. Real good feeling.
That was an extraordinary week, wasn't it, Gary?
Yeah, yeah, it was amazing. I just loved it. I was telling my wife about it. It's one of those kind of experiences. By the way, when I went into the archives to look at my family history, I spent some more time on it, and I was astounded actually. Finding information about my great grandparents, my great grandmother,
Oh yeah.
and her actually father was Dutch and not Greek, like I had been told, and
Oh,
her
really?
mother was Italian. So, and born in Turkey. I was like, this is, I've never heard this in my life, but it was quite interesting finding
Yeah.
out.
I'm glad you got to have that time. It was towards the end of that day that we were in that condo overlooking Temple Square, and I'm glad that you took that time to go to the Family History Library. It's a world famous library. I've spent a lot of time in there myself.
Yeah, it's amazing. I had a really good time. So you went down through it. So as you're going down through it, you did, you were at ancestry.com. Makes a lot of sense being in Utah, right? So did ancestry.com come out of all the work of the Mormon church?
No, it's not really related. It came out of a magazine called Ancestry that was acquired by some entrepreneurs, some serial entrepreneurs, Paul Allen, Dan Taggart, and then Paul Allen's brother, Kurt Allen, who became CEO. But it was, I would say, kind of just a sleepy magazine for genealogists. And then it was sort of reimagined by these entrepreneurs to include digital databases, which it's known for now, this vast repository of databases on genealogy. And so it became digitized. And I was one of the early employees. I think I was the first VP of Biz Dev there and helped grow the company. We were one of the early subscription models. Uh, Back in the day, the Wall Street Journal, Consumer Reports were these early experiments with digital subscription models when the internet was quite young. So that was a great experience. We tinkered with the subscription model pricing and different subscription durations, all the while adding databases right and left. Some of them pretty important, like Social Security database and lots of census records and vital records, and then a lot of country records. I actually traveled to Europe and helped acquire some records in Scotland and England, and went to lots of genealogical conferences in Europe, where they have such a deep history, and they have a great interest in genealogy. I think it's it's like the second most popular hobby, first or second, depending on the year it's being pulled. But yeah, it was fun to see Ancestry grow, and I left before it became, a multi-billion-dollar company. But I was there during the early years when we were in a very modest building, and we just had a couple dozen employees.
Well, I hope you got a lot of shares out of that.
I got a few.
That's great. So then you went to the learning company, spent time there. You raised a Series A.
Yeah,
Uh,
learning.com actually. Yeah, it was an educational startup in Portland, Oregon, teaching kids how to use computers, how and why, I guess you could say. And so I did a lot of work with the state procurement process in different states with education agencies, got some state contracts, especially in Texas, Florida, and a few other states that have what they call state textbook adoption or instructional materials adoptions. And
and
so
then
that,
you went to, go ahead, go ahead.
no, yeah, and then that was a run for about 11 years. It got acquired, and then I came back to Utah, got involved with Paul Alstrom, whom you met at that event. Um, he's we actually had known each other for quite a few years. We went to BYU together. He's a serial entrepreneur. I guess you could say one of the grandfathers of the Utah investment community. He started an important fund back in the 90s called V Spring in Utah. And His company was one of the first companies ever funded in Utah by institutional capital, knowledge. And so he had a fund at that time called Alta Ventures, Alta Ventures Mexico, and I got involved and was working with him for a few years.
Well, that must have been interesting. Okay, so you go forward, you go to. So how in the world did you go to the? How did you go to the? Director of online programs? That seems like that would have been boring, actually, doing after all the stuff you did. What
Well,
happened there?
I was invited to be a part of a committee at the University of Utah that was exploring how to create an online MBA. And my recommendation was to not subcontract it to a private vendor. This one happened to be in Texas. And I just said, no, the University of Utah, it's the premier state university in Utah. It should develop its own capacity for delivering online degree programs. And so I made a strong push for that. They asked me to direct the program. So I set it up and got it started and really got it launched. It was involving a lot of students, lots of local resources. We used some of the learning.com talent, actually, some of the instructional designers that learning.com had used. And so it was taking abstract ideas from a professor about finance or accounting, turning it into a kinetic animation to make it more, I guess, comprehensible, just to make it seem more engaging. And that was a lot of fun to put together take abstract ideas and turn it into an instructional sort of method that is easy to learn, easy to grasp.
That's amazing. So tell me about TechBuzz. I mean, they're so exciting being in Utah. So much news, so many incredible companies. So tell us a little bit about that, and how did you get started with it, and what's happening with TechBuzz News today?
Well, yeah, in the early days of the pandemic, Paul Alstrom, Rob Lifford, and I, we noticed that there are many stories in Utah not being covered by the local news. Some of them pretty substantial. There was a company, Finicity, that was acquired by MasterCard for nearly $1 billion, 850 million plus some debt. So it was almost $1 billion transaction, and it wasn't covered in the media. And we thought that was just the last straw. So we decided to create a media company, stand up TechBuzz.news, and we just almost immediately, just after a couple of weeks, stood it up and started posting stories about Utah tech companies. And so it's got a geographical focus on Utah, which gives us actually plenty of material. It's a very dynamic startup and entrepreneur climate here. So what we do is we write a story about every day or twice a day of a Utah company that has either gotten funded, maybe a seed round or a pre-seed round or a Series A, or they have launched a new product or have, they're coming out of stealth mode. That's a common theme. It's a company that comes to us to tell their story and to basically help them debut. And it's the first article usually indexed by Google about that given company. So we do a lot of these stories. It's actually a really fun project. I enjoy it immensely because I'm meeting all of these innovators, these young entrepreneurs who constantly amaze me by their creativity and their innovation.
So why is there so much magic around Utah now in the tech community?
Well, Utah's kind of has come of age in terms of its entrepreneur culture. It's always had an entrepreneur culture. A lot of startups have come out of Utah that have influenced the industry. That, for example, have influenced Pixar, have influenced Um, you know, Ancestry is one of the first ones, but Novell and WordPerfect, these are commonly known Utah startups that around here everyone knows about, at least. And so Utah's had this history, but it's been small, certainly compared to Silicon Valley. It's been small, and in many years it was very backwards and ludicrously sort of behind the times. But then over just steadily, it has grown. The investment community here has developed. Paul Alstrom was a big part of that, but others helped grow the institutional investment community. And then there's this tendency for Utahns to have an exit and then reinvest that into several other startups that are homegrown, that are here in Utah. A lot of times that investment stays here and it generates a next wave or next generation of entrepreneurs. And there's something about the culture here. There's a collaboration tendency that I think is maybe unique. There's this idea of collaborating well with each other. And so there's a big population of entrepreneurs and tech executives that move around from company to company, and they gain experience, then they go somewhere else, they apply that experience, they have an exit, they use those resources to generate new companies. And so it's that has now kind of hit its stride, and it's like a flywheel. It's moving very efficiently. And there's also, I would say, a very business friendly environment coming from the state government in terms of making it easy for people to start companies here. The regulations are usually very favorable. The governor is always pro. The last several governors have been very pro business, and the tax environment is pretty favorable. So I think it's easy to start a company here, but it's also attractive for companies to move here, and we're seeing a lot of that. That's another theme in TechBuzz. Companies that have set up a second headquarters in Utah, either a tech company, or even an investment house that wants to set up a headquarters in Utah. And we're seeing a lot of that.
No, it's an amazing place. I got to tell you, the people were nice, and I can see the collaboration. It seems like people want to work together. They have historically, right? So through the church and things. So it's amazing what's happening. And but on the other side of it, they're kind of modest too, right? They don't talk about what they have, and sometimes you got to get it out. One thing in Silicon Valley, it's really good is people are really good at marketing and getting it out, and getting the word out is really important. Sometimes you don't know. I know with the group that I was with, some of the people didn't understand how many opportunities are in Utah.
Yeah, well, it's true. Utah has, I think, kind of suffered under this inferiority complex. A couple decades ago, everyone here was looking to California for leadership. California was the trendsetter. Silicon Valley, of course, is world famous as being such an epicenter for talent and for capital and innovation. But I think Utah's now becoming more confident in its own right as a hub for entrepreneurship and capital. It's a fantastic place to live. You notice that. I mean, the beauty of the local environment, the mountains, the lakes, the deserts, the Red Rock country. You were here on a week that was particularly beautiful in October with the colors in the mountains. Snow-capped mountains really close by, access to skiing very close. And so, yeah, there's that recreational draw, but then there's also just the ease of living here and the low cost of living relatively. I mean, housing has really shot up, but it used to be quite reasonable. But other things, there's just an easygoing attitude generally. There is a humility, you're right. In fact, this is what I encounter all the time. My reaction, a lot of times when I find out about some startup, and I just said, why does nobody know about you? I mean, this is so incredible. What you've built is so shockingly innovative. And then they say, well, we've been too busy. You know, we're just heads down building this thing. And so that's why we came to you. We want you to tell the story. So that's fun. I get to bring to light, shine a light on a number of these young companies that are doing really amazing things. And often with AI, there's been several articles, dozens of articles in this past year after OpenAI made their announcement, about a year ago. That's just spawned dozens and dozens of companies, certainly all over the world. In Silicon Valley, certainly some big investments have been made. But here in Utah, on a smaller scale, there have been some really big developments coming out of the entrepreneur community with AI. And that's been really encouraging to see.
No, I tell you what, it's amazing. Listen, we're coming up to the top of the show. I have to get you on again because it's just fascinating. We'll talk more about Utah. I appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule, Mark. For all those entrepreneurs that are out there that are interested in Utah, what would you like to say to them?
Oh, yeah, come to Utah, meet the entrepreneur scene, meet the people that are supporting this community. And I would love to do a story about your company.
That's great. Mark, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Thanks to all my audience for joining one more time. GSD presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech, and my name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. Mark, I'll see you again. Like to have you back.
I hope you can come to Utah again soon.
I want to come. I love the place. From amazing people, amazing technology, and amazing companies. So thanks so much. Take care, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.